Alright. Well, I'm going to talk about Arkham Knight and my emotional response tonight. As I'm wearing with my shirt, you know. This is a different one compared to the last two. The last two were more about um, kind of the political landscape, the world as it is, sort of thing. Arkham Knight is kind of a different story, and I liked it. It gave me an emotional response because of that. I liked it because it had a code of conduct with the main villain like this, and I think the code of conduct for the character is more like something he's dedicated to live by, and it doesn't see that same response in the society or his elders, his or her or whatever's elders. Um, you don't see that same response in the older generations that are around you. And I think Arkham Knight is kind of like trying to be responsible for something the rest of the older generations aren't, and living up to it totally, which is again an emotional thing. It's very much not overreaching to what sometimes people do. I always I'm kind of thinking of it like the two other games because it's like most of them were about rebellion. They were always about rebellion in some way. In some landscape, it kind of showed rebellion in a big way. How people would respond to the world, how people would respond to like what people are doing in the world. This one's a little different. I think Arkham Knight doesn't care that the rest of the world doesn't live by that code of conduct, but he does. He does. And I think that's the important part is that he's upset with the people who say they would, but really don't. And it's not really like a childish thing he's saying. It's almost like you could have protected me kind of thing. You know, you could have protected this from happening. And it's not only about him. That's the funniest part. The character is not trying to say, this is only about me. The character is basically saying that if you don't live up to this in every single response, you're going to lose people that you don't need to lose. And it's only because you're not living up to that response in the same way. So, when you think of something like Batman in DC, he doesn't always live up to the response. And that's always good for a story because he's the most human of, you know, obviously a hero, superhero, whatever. But at the same time, Arkham Knight isn't saying that he has to be perfect. He's saying that he has to be responsible for not living up to the conduct and the ideas that he's professing as a, you know, as he does when he puts on his suit and what's he been doing for years. And I think that's important. It's like when you rebel, there could be good reason to. I saw an interview with Dr. Drew the other day, and he was talking about how people can get narcissism very easily because if they're coddled, they're protected from the world. Now, I don't want to say that always happens because I think there's other reasons why people can be narcissistic. In fact, I think most people can be narcissistic because of their own experiences. You know, if they were stabbed in the back so much, they're going to live by that mentality, and they're only going to share that kind of mentality. That to me is a side of narcissism right there. My experiences will be yours. I'm personally going to say this, out of this game even, I don't think Arkham Knight felt stabbed in the back. I think he just felt like this person taught him a lesson that he didn't live up to. We've all gone through that. In some way, we've heard people around us, authority figures, family members, friends, media, politicians, government, whatever, something worldwide that you've seen or heard, and you see them not live up to it at the expense of others. That's what basically is the problem here. What's the most important part? Is it you creating that idea and putting it out there, or is it living up to it? Living up to what that idea means. To me, Arkham Knight is about that. It's about that identity of, oh, I need to live up to that? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But I thought about that, playing the game, and seeing how the story ended with Arkham. If you don't want to know the spoiler, don't listen. But it's that he basically says, it's your fault why why I turned out like this, why I wanted to change my identity. To me, I like that Arkham Knight story because he's basically saying that I can't live with a code of conduct that I want to live up to if I'm still showing some kind of recognition to you, to what Batman is. Because if Batman's not living up to Batman, why should I be any more recognized as being something close to Batman, or something that was close, a companion, or kind of like an element of Batman? If that's not going to happen, then you have to work against what you see is the problem, what you see as the issue and the wrong in that situation. And it's not it's not wrong. It's not wrong to say that it was Batman in that situation that didn't save him, that didn't put himself forward to try to find an answer, instead of listening to all the answers he was given, which I think is one of the biggest flaws of the character. And Arkham Knight really showed that he just takes answers, and sometimes he doesn't look into it deeper. Maybe the villain won't share the truth, and yes, there's certain ones you can listen to and understand and believe, but there's also things that you need to see more of, that it may not just come from such a faraway place like the media or something like that, which is what sometimes is shown to him. Don't believe it, because it may be just something that's made up, something that's kind of like characterized and supposed to just show you something to make you feel a certain way. So maybe you won't go after somebody and try to save somebody because of it. Which is what happened in the story too with Gordon's daughter, who worked with Batman. So you have everything that worked together, but even Commissioner Gordon hated Batman in the story. Not necessarily because hated him, but they were both after the same thing, but it didn't matter because he didn't share something with him about his daughter that was happening, and that her life was at risk because of, again, Clark and Batman. Bruce and Batman. Excuse my mess up there. I don't know. I just wanted to share that because to me Arkham Knight really was spontaneous in that. It kind of had that almost like a brother to a brother kind of situation, where many people have shared over the years that, well, what if somebody, I've heard this before, where a family member dies, somebody comes in for money. Well, here's my restitution for that statement. Because, don't get it twisted, I've probably talked about this before with the people that needed to hear it, but if anybody does, they can have it. I'll shove it down their throats. Because as far as I'm concerned, if your relationship is just waiting for somebody else to die and then you'll come to me for stuff, I'm not here. That means I'm going to disappear. By any means necessary, I'll disappear. I hate to say it, but the truth is, if you're going to put that in front of me, and that means anybody, if I have to be a certain case that just walks away from you a certain way, it will happen. And I think Arkham Knight really showed that no matter what, the determination was still there. Yes, I'll help you. Yes, I'll save you. Yes, I'll even help you at the end of it, even though I was against, because I have my own code of conduct. It's still about what your resources and values are, where you are in your life, and how you're going to handle the things that come up in situations, and how are you going to turn, what you're going to turn into because of it. Because I don't think Arkham Knight really is necessarily a villain in the story. I think he's just a person that had to keep his code of conduct and had kept his sanity by doing it this way. That's all.